Welcome to the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic podcast.
I'd like to welcome you to the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic podcast. Today we've got a delight. We've been filming this podcast for a number of weeks, and it's about assisting individuals outside with networking and helping them find a way if they don't know individuals within different diversities, different backgrounds, different types of work. And today I have the pleasure of being here with Gurchetan Singh Sandhu, who I was at college with, and I've got some fun stories about him, but they won't be shared here today. And I just want to initially start by saying, Waheguru Khalsa, Waheguru Fateh. Thank you very much for coming onto the podcast, and thank you for being a guest and honoured us by having us at your house. In relation to this podcast, it is your podcast. You say what you want. Yeah, I've got set questions. You say whatever you want. And I just want you to feel happy. At any point you're not happy with this, just stop. There's no issues. You take a phone call, whatever. It's not a problem. If you're happy to go sing, we'll start, if that's good with you.
Yeah.
The first question is, for those people who are not going to know, who is Gurchetan Singh Sandhu?
Goodness, I haven't even heard the sing in the middle for a long time. For those who know me, I'm Gurchetan, or Gurchetan, or in French, Gurchetan. Most people out there, especially in the global advocacy world, may know me as Nanu. I am how do I describe myself? I grew up in the UK to migrant, working class, Sikh parents.
Yeah.
I'm currently working in the United Nations, in the UN system, which is working for the International Labour Organization, which is within the UN system, a specialised agency working on fundamental principles and rights of work. Who am I? I ask that question myself all the time, and I think it's a question that I don't think I've ever got to answer completely. I think I'm still discovering myself at every single aspect. I don't think you stop learning about who you are. I don't think you should stop learning about who you are. I think you should, and that's fundamental as well, as a Sikh. In the Japji Sahib, we have, which is one of the first parts of the Guru Granth Sahib, we talk about you're going to correct me on this, I think.
No,
Up journey or up, which the whole idea of know yourself, and I think you never finish that. So for me, I think I'm on this journey about learning who I am, discovering and accepting my parts of myself as well. I think that's one of the hardest parts, is to not just learn, but accept who you are. To
critique yourself and take that criticism on who you are.
Exactly. So that's one aspect of me. Who else am I? I would say that I'm a person who champions social justice and believes in social justice and equality of all. I think that stems from the values that I've grown up with in my community, with my parents, that we have equality regardless of race, religion, sex, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, HIV status, all of that. That we are that we are all equal. And that our differences matter, and that we have to be, those differences have to be celebrated. That's who I am, I think, and that's for me is a very, very key part. And I think the other thing is for me is that we it's not just that I'm Sikh and I'm a migrant, but your struggles are my struggles as well, because our lives are so intersectional. We don't live in silos. I don't just live in Geneva or in Leicester, and I'm not just a Sikh, but whatever our movements are, our identities are intersectional with other parts of us. So what impacts you will impact me consequently as well. And we have to make sure that we're not just working for ourselves, but we're working for the benefit of everyone. Because if someone else benefits, I benefit too, I think, and that's what I think is really, really important. And I think this comes down to Sikhi as well.
I was about to say that's a massive principle of Sikhi, the benefit of others. Langar, everything, institutions, seva, education, it's all for the benefit of others.
Yeah, but my activism has brought me back to my faith, because in some parts of my journey, I think I've lost a part of my faith. because of working on LGBTIQ plus issues as well. I was like, okay, this is something that the faith is not. But working on this and working on myself through that journey, I realised that actually it brought me closer to my faith. It brought me back to my faith. Like ideas of this idea that we have seva, that seva just happens in the Gurdwara. No. Seva happens everywhere. This is seva right now, right? The idea of sangat is only in the Gurdwara. No, sangat is, and this is sangat right now. We're keeping some, and these are the sort of ideas I think that sometimes when we're learning them as growing up, and perhaps and no fault through our communities, but some, they got entrenched in certain sort of values which don't always align with Sikhi, I think, sometimes. I don't know if I went a bit long-winded in that answer, but yeah.
Your answer is your answer.
Yeah.
This is about who you are.
Thank you.
So that's the reason why, there's loads there. But, you just talked about, especially with regards to the 9 characteristics of equality that you went through and things like that. I think they're really important to know. Social justice, massively. Sikhs have always been warriors of social justice. They've always spoken out, whether it's a view or something that they are adhering to or they are dealing with. Gurudev Wadaji stood up for the Kashmiri Pundits and the Hindu faith on suppression that was taking place on them. But like you said, with the empathy, they're like, I know what you're going through. I can, even though it's not us that are in those situations, I will stand up for you. I will stand up for social justice. And it's a big thing that's, unfortunately, I think this generation is getting better than the new generation. Millennials are more into activism. But our generation are more, you're structured, you carry on, you look after yourself, make sure. And I think it's good that we still have that. Yeah, I think it's also a question around migration as well. Our generation were first generation migrant. It was the whole idea of settling into the UK or into your diaspora, into your host communities, whether you're in Canada or whether you're in the US, is to establish yourselves. And we have done that now, and we're allowing the next generation, because of our legacy, we can allow next generations perhaps to take up that legacy, that activism that is essential to building better society, better and more inclusive societies. But I think we had that sort of regimented, go to university, do this, and go to and get a job and get a proper job. It was to because our parents came here, that generation came here, they struggled to get themselves a grounding. They just wanted us to have better than them. Economically, and as a form of status within society, and that's fair play to them. But the next step is to make sure that we're helping others, we're benefiting others. Definitely. Right, Singh, next question. Tell me about your childhood, family makeup. Seen your mum and dad. Lovely people. I've got tea here. I've got food. If you're not careful, you'll have another resident here. But tell me about your life. So Birmingham born, Leicester bred. I have 2 parents, both from Punjab. And I have a younger sister who's happily married, and a niece and a brother-in-law. So that's us. That's our family. My childhood, you know what? I mean, the way my mother describes it is like she's looking. It's trouble. Just trouble. Getting up to mischief. What would I do? I would bring bugs into the house. This is in Birmingham days. Bring bugs into the house. I would go through the back door and get end up on the main door, because this is one of those terrace house situations. It was just a lot of mischief. And I think some part of my life as well, there was also a few elements as well that were always, growing up, I always had this other sort of niggling voice at the back of my head, was, some people talking about me in general. Oh, he looks like a girl. He behaves like a girl. So those kinds of things were quite annoying. I think this whole sort of feminizing someone, as if it's, and the way they always, as if there's an issue there. There's an issue there as well. Oh, he's very, very feminine. Like, what's wrong with that? And I think this also goes against Sikhi principles, because we have genderless souls, right? We have, and this is just ash, and this is going to return to ash, and this is just dirt, and it's a vehicle, a vessel to take us to another place. So I think why do we get caught up? And those genders live both within us, and if
So there was a niggling element of that. But I think the biggest thing, right now, when I was growing up in particular was, especially when we moved to Leicester. We moved to Leicester after the issues in Birmingham in terms of, this is during the recession times.
Yeah. What part of Birmingham were you from?
Handsworth Wood.
Okay.
Yeah. Just off Soho Road,
Yeah.
Road. And I think we moved here into Leicester, and I think the first form of discrimination I experienced was because of, having a goatee on my head, having a turban. More not a turban, having a goatee on
Having a judo on
your head, and you'd hear, trigger warning, bit of violence coming up. You'd hear the, thing, Paki go home.
Yeah.
All kinds of racist slurs, and that was your thing. And also, growing up as first generation, you all, in a predominantly white working class / middle class neighborhood, you always were made to feel that you were visiting. This was not yours.
Yeah.
And you did not belong. And also, you would be compared to the culture that we grew up in. I think I don't know if you shared this, but for me, it was always, I always struggled between, am I British or am I Indian?
Well,
am I Indian or am I Punjabi or am I British?
For me, that was my big issue was, and I've said this on another talk. You grow up as a kid and I am English, I'm British. Yeah. And then you get told you are not British. You're a Paki, you're this, you're that.
Yeah.
And then you go, I'm a Punjabi, and you get back to India and they go, what, you're not one of us. And then that's where I thought, I'm Sikh and nobody can take that away from me.
Yeah.
And that was how I had to identify myself, because I exactly the same as you. I was like, am I British? Am I Indian?
Yeah.
Am I British Indian? Am I Asian British? How do I define myself? And then in the end I went, fuck that shit. This is how I define myself. So I can understand that struggle.
Yeah, that was the biggest struggle, I think. That I think always trying to fit in. Also beauty standards, right? As
I didn't give a shit. I still don't give a shit.
So you do get compared to other people, right? Your looks.
Yeah.
So back in the despite within our community, we everyone will say, oh, it's Guru Sarup, it's beautiful, it has to be. You are carrying that, but you are still living in you're in a community within a community. So external still, your beauty standards are still white and Western, blue eyes, blonde hair. I didn't, now looking back, I always thought I just did not want to be in the skin. Did not want to be Sikh, did not want to be in the skin.
Yeah.
Why this? Why everything? And I think it's all of this work I've done on discrimination that actually sort of go back to look at that and go, actually, you know what?
So I had an introspective experience on how your life has been.
For me, that was, I think I wasn't always comfortable. I always felt out of place.
Yeah.
Either in my skin, in my body, in my religion, in my faith, always. Even at college, I never talked about this as well. I think, but at college as well.
That's because of the era that we're in.
Yeah. The era. I always felt we had to fit in, and it was just this pressure to be something that you were told you had to be. You had to be something at home. You had to be something at college. You had to be something in another part. You always had to be something, but you couldn't be yourself.
Yeah.
Now, at any moment you let that off, you let people realize what you really are.
Yeah,
that's it. You're done.
Yeah,
and I think the lucky thing is, having gone to Geneva now, I mean, I've been able to do that. Even at university, I wasn't able to do that. It was such. University, I got to Birmingham, I was like, okay, finally can be myself. But even then, there was that sort of added pressure.
You're moulded. You have to fit in a peg hole, don't you?
Yeah, I remember at university. So I had a lot of Pakistani and Muslim friends.
Yeah,
we'd get cornered, and by other Sikhs, like, are we all dead to you? Can you be friends with Sikhs and not with Indians and not with Pakistanis and Muslim? And I'm like, I'm friends with everyone. I don't care who you are.
I was about to say, people would be worried with our social circle when we were at college then.
Yeah, exactly.
We had Salem, we had Sunil, we had Chit, we had, we were a mixture, and we were a melting pot of different. Exactly. I remember, there's an example. We ended up on a night out at Jongleurs here.
Yeah. And
Shappi Kaur Sandhu, before she was famous, was doing a stand-up. And she's like, oh, look at the little Asian corner there. I bet they're all a bunch of Sikhs. Well, no. She's like, well, what are you then? And same as that. I'm Muslim. And Sina goes, I'm a Hindu. She's like, wait, see, Hindu and Muslim together? You three together? Friends? Like, yeah. She just couldn't understand it, so...
And that was the beauty, I think. That's, That
was our friendship, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was our friendship. And we had that sort of a melting pot in our college as well.
Yeah.
And that was, exactly. But there wasn't that...
there was no tribalism, was there?
Yeah, there was a bit of tribalism behind it. There was a bit of... And also this sort of, he speaks in a certain way, is he a coconut? I got called that so many times.
Yeah.
And also within our sort of families as well, he acts like a Gora or this or that white person.
Yeah.
So you just couldn't be, you had to, sort of live up to this sort of thing that someone wanted you to be and had to be. And that puts a lot of pressure on our communities. And that drives mental health issues, that drives it a lot. Yeah. So growing up, there was that. And I think, and even if I moved away to Geneva, it still went with me.
Yeah, of course it is. Baggage stays with you, doesn't it?
It stays with you. And I think it's only until I was like 33, 34, after I went through counselling.
Yeah.
That I was able to sort of like, oh, this is mine now. Actually, I can be who I want to be.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be me. I'm not going to put on these things that, where people force you into these sort of molds of this is what you have to do, this is what you can't do and can do. So, yeah, I mean, childhood was fun. I did get to do the adventurous stuff. I did go back. I remember going backpacking to India. Which Punjabi family would allow you to go backpacking in India?
My parents still don't let me do that now.
Okay. So I went backpacking in India for 6 months, and everyone was telling my parents were put up not on a fight, but there was discontent about it.
Yeah.
They were like, why does he want to spend 6 months in India? Just go to the Bend and come home. I'm like, no. I want to
experience it.
I want to experience it, and going from Kashmir all the way down to Kanyakumari on the west side, sort of following the west route. Beautiful. So that's what I did. So very, the odd one out in the family. Like he's in India backpacking. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
The other thing was we used to have a collective called Shanti in Birmingham. Okay. That's still going on. And it was an Asian fusion night, East meets West kind of thing. And this is where I really found my tribe.
You used to be a dancer, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I used to be a dancer as well.
Yeah.
I used to dance in front of thousands of clubbers.
Yeah.
At Miss Moneypenny's.
That's what I remember.
Yeah.
Miss Moneypenny's. I remember you telling us about that. Well, I can see that happening because I remember you at college, let alone anything else.
So yeah, I went off dancing. I didn't have my parents to begin with at first. Told my mum, and oh my god, yeah. So there were some fun times. I think my parents finally told my dad. It was like okay, whatever, and he came back one day and there's relatives or friends of the family over. They're like, "Where's Gurchetan come from?" They're like, "Oh, Birmingham." What was he doing? I danced in a club in front of hundreds of people. And I'm like, okay, thanks. And then there's this automatic perception of you. You're this kind of a person. And it's like, well, okay, I enjoy what I do, and I'm breaking the mold that, this is something that we can do, it doesn't have to be this sort of different thing. So, yeah, I'm going to label myself, I was the odd one out. I was the odd pair of socks. Which is fine, and I got to have fun with it, and that was my life until it took me to Geneva.
Yeah,
and even dancing helped in Geneva as well.
Well, that's the thing for me. I remember you up to that point, and then the next thing I remember you getting, I'm in Geneva on Facebook. I was like, what the hell is he doing there? So for me, can I ask you, how did you go about going from college, uni, Miss Moneypenny's, being here in Leicester with us, and then the next thing I was like, he's in Geneva.
Yeah.
How did you end up there, and what took you there?
So I went off to do my masters in Manchester.
Yeah. That was after we all left.
after you all left. Sunil
was still there.
Yeah, Salem was still. Yeah,
yeah.
Sunil was there. There's a few of you that Bowie was still there.
Yeah.
I don't know what year Bowie you were doing again.
He's doing year 1 again, I think.
So there was, and in fact, I think Bowie and I lived in the same apartments. So I was doing my masters, and then I met a good friend of mine now, James Lambert, who had just finished his internship at the International Labour Organization, and he'd come back and he'd learned about this thing called SCREAM, which is an acronym for Supporting Children's Rights to Arts, Education and the Media. And his former supervisor had proposed to him that why don't you do something at the university? This is a youth mobilizing, community mobilizing tool that engaging young people through arts, education and the media to do something about child labour. And so doing this masters at the same time we got engaged, we started doing stuff at the University of Manchester, and I had an events background thanks to Shanti, as I was able to learn a few tricks of the trade. Learn about the music industry a little bit, learn about how to organise events, how to promo them, and how to work with volunteers. All of that, sort of behind the scenes stuff I had learned. And so organised this big event called Drummers versus DJs. That was a big hit at the university. We organised a debate together. So James and I were co-founders of Scream Manchester. And I sort of really got involved in the activism for that. And really enjoyed it, and I got carried away with it. After my masters, I started, sort of saying, look, how do we promote this toolkit around the UK education system, writing out to education authorities and boards. And when the ILO, I told the ILO what I was doing.
What was it that I know you're on about with kids through education, art and media.
Yeah.
But what was it that you were actually advocating at the time?
To stopping child labour.
Labour, yeah.
Yeah, stopping child labour.
Is it modern slavery, or are we talking at child labour everywhere around the world, or just here?
No, everywhere around the world.
Okay.
Yeah. Modern slavery is child labour is a form of modern slavery. It can be. It's a subset. If you talk to the technocrats, it gets very, very technical. And what modern slavery is versus what forced labour is. The UK government call it modern slavery. At the international arena, it's forced labour.
Sorry. You were setting up this in Manchester.
Then co-founded that. Then started doing my advocacy there, and then I remember going off to the ILO saw what I was doing. They're like, "Look, do you want to come to Geneva as an intern and learn?"
Okay.
I was like, "Oh my god, okay." And let me sort of go back to my childhood. At the age of 12, I remember turning around to a friend of mine at Lancaster Boys' School and saying to them,
"Boo."
Yeah, it wasn't Bowie, it was you and Roger.
No, I'm just saying boo that you went there.
Not bad school, I don't know what it's doing now, but so at Lanky Boys, I turned around to a friend of mine in the playground and said, "You know what, one day I want to work for the UN."
Yeah.
And, after my GCSEs and my A-level results and the university I went to, I thought that's never going to happen. So, after doing my masters and then getting this opportunity to go and do a 6-month internship, why not? And I remember actually the same week I got the internship, the same week I got an offer from Leicester City Council to work there. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go off and do that instead.
Could have been in the middle of town, what?
Exactly. And then my parents were looking at me like, "You're going where to do what?" Yeah, exactly. Well, you're going where to do what?
Yeah.
And no one could understand only until they were, that they were like, "Oh, it's the United Nations, or it's part of the UN system." So 6 months turned into 10 months, and the internship finished. Managed to get a P1 contract straight after my internship. That was then it was this 3-month contract, 6-month contract. Then each time it was extended 3 months, 6 months, until the end of 2008 when I landed a project as the coordinator of that project for 5 years, for at least 3-4 years. And that was fine. Then I jumped from a P1, P2. Then I had a year contract, and that was it, Yeah. And the rest has been history.
So, what does your work in Geneva involve? From the moment you got there, what was it that... So you set out your aims and objectives, but what are your aims and objectives, and what is it that you do?
Oh, okay. So
if you can say based on security reasons.
No. In terms of we get called international civil servants. So there's an international civil servant code of conduct, what we sign and what we can say, etc., how we should be behaving. And, a lot of my work is project based. So there's in areas of the ILO or most of the UN, there's core funding and the funding that is fixed. And then what we do is we get this thing called extra budgetary funding. So, projects come in or extra funding comes in from donors, from member states, from private philanthropy or foundations. And it's tied to a specific objective that aligns with the values of that organisation or their foreign policy, right?
Is it like... Sounds really weird. Is it like you get funded for different projects?
Yeah.
So it's not just one role. It's a case of if an organisation come in and go, we've got an issue with this.
Yeah.
This is the funding. This is what we want as an objective. Find me a way of doing it. So you're project managing.
Yeah, project managing.
Okay.
So that was the kind of work I ended up. So my actual first role was actually in campaign and communications, helping engagement of youth. Designing activities for kids to do in schools or in different fora. Well, Scouts remember coming to the UK for the centennial jamboree, spending like 4 or 5 days in a tent, sleeping in the jamboree for the UN, and the other UN agencies were there as well. Sort of help raising awareness on child labour and how young people can actually harness their skills to talk about this issue. So that then I moved into sort of data management, and then it wasn't until I landed the first sort of big project that I started to learn about project management and policy development.
Okay.
And there, I think that was the sort of jackpot moment, started to learn about how to design national action plans. So governments have national action plans against modern slavery, national action plans against child labour.
So we have like a control strategy. So drugs, serious acquisitive crime, serious organised crime, firearms, drugs like that.
Exactly.
So it's things like that. You'll get given a portfolio.
Right, exactly. So we in the project, we've designed it with a specific government in mind. They've got so many, and we've negotiated it with the host countries where we're going to actually do the work.
Yeah.
And what sort of work is needed. So reach out to a government. If the donor and the host government where we want to work, their values align.
Yeah.
They say yes, this is what we need support on. We'll go in and say right, okay, we're going to help design a policy. We're going to help put in a child labour monitoring system. We're going to help strengthen the labour inspection. We're going to train enforcement officers. We're going to train judges. Look at how to mainstream child labour into social protection policies, into education policies.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, and so that's where.
So you're looking at it strategically rather than tactical.
Yeah.
Tactical is going, I need this done now, and this is how we're going to do it. But you're looking at cross sections of every part of society.
Exactly. Yeah.
In order to make an impact at every level, rather than just looking at one.
Yeah.
That's a bit mad.
It is, but you're still looking at the national level, so it depends on what kind of projects and what the objectives are. So if you're going into like a child labour monitoring system, that can be very sort of on the ground tactical, and you have to make sure your goals are aligned because it's also behavioural change as well. So you're bringing about behaviour change. It can be very difficult. Then you've got things like updating laws. There's a gap in the law. For example, if there's a gap between the vocational education between the age that you can actually pursue technical vocational education and the age that you can leave school, if there's a big gap, like 2 or 3 years, which
because in some countries there is, you leave at 15.
You leave at 15,
and then at 18 you can get into some of those vocations.
Exactly, but you can't
because law subscribes because it's too dangerous. You're not old enough. You can't have access to these things.
Exactly, and then what's going to happen to you between your 15 and 18? You're still in as a minor. You don't have age of majority, so you are more likely to fall into child labour. So these are the kinds of things that you're looking at. You're looking at pornography laws. We worked in Uganda on that. I think we had to update that. So there's different kinds of projects. So did that up until became a sort of specialist in national action plans, helping governments going through the process, looking at the technical issues, the consultative process. So my areas of focus were policy, and project management, and then ended up becoming the project director, and was on my way up to senior management level, kind of not senior management, but sort of off to become project. I was a project director, and I could have continued that path and become what we call a chief technical advisor.
Yeah.
You go off, and I remember opportunities being offered, and I went, nah, done, time out, changed my path.
Why?
Because I wasn't learning anything. I'd done for...
it's about advancing your skills. And if you're saying that you're not going anywhere...
And it was about advancing my passion for equality with my day job and the other advocacy work I was doing on the side within the UN system.
We've not touched upon that. And I'm not going to touch upon that until you go through your work first.
Yeah, so now I'm working on... so now I'm a program officer on non-discrimination and equal pay for work of equal value. And actually, so in the ILO, we have what is called the Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work Declaration. There are 4 fundamental principles and rights at work: no child labour, no forced labour, or what you would call modern slavery, freedom of association, collective bargaining, and non-discrimination. Freedom of non-discrimination is a cross-cutting against all 3 of them.
Okay.
Freedom of association is an enabling principle. So to eliminate child labour, forced labour, you need, and to combat non-discrimination, you need freedom of association expression. Yeah. And freedom and non-discrimination cuts across all 4. And if you really, and one of the key things I'm actually looking back is hang on, if we want to tackle child labour, or we want to tackle forced labour, we have to centre it into a equality-based discussion, non-discrimination-based discussion, because if you look at the demographics of the kids, if it's older boys, why are they? So they're being discriminated, or they're being put into child labour because they're older boys.
Yeah.
If it's a certain certain subgroup of the population in terms of race, you look at parts of Colombia, Dominican Republic. Why are Afro descendants more in child labour? Okay. So then if you look at caste, when you go to Southeast Asia, you start
the Dalit Society, things like that.
Yeah. So I think one of the key areas that if I was ever to go back into child labour work, is make sure that our approach was centred in a non-discrimination approach, which I think is not being done totally right at the moment. Might have to cut that out.
That's all
right. So I think that's an area of improvement for us, but and that's brought me into non-discrimination work, and it's how to mainstream non-discrimination into the work of fundamental principles and rights of work.
Okay.
But at the same time looking at specific issues, and my areas of specific interest are race, religion, and sexual orientation, and gender identity, and gender expression, and sex characteristics. So there's sort of grounds of discrimination.
Is that what you're doing now, or is that your work outside of work?
Inside as well, and
inside
outside
as well.
Inside and outside.
Okay.
I'm very, my main focus is also equal pay. So working on equal pay for work of equal value. So with the Equal Pay International Coalition, championing to close the gender pay gap between men and women.
So does that work only in? Are you looking at that within government departments, or are you looking at private industry as well?
So
because the private industry can make up their own pay scales as they like anyway. I can understand with the discrimination between the genders.
Yeah.
I don't know how the hell they're going to do that. But working in the government, you're working on a pay scale with years.
Yeah. But so we're talking about equal pay for work of equal value.
Yeah,
it's the value that you produce. And we work, so the ILO works with governments, employers, and workers' organisations.
Yeah.
So we have 3 areas that we work with, 3 members, constituents. So we don't just work with governments. And, governments are there, we encourage them to align their national laws according to international conventions. And they can't do that alone. They must do that in consultation with employers' organisations and with workers' organisations too. So those are the areas. And, things that, from my day-to-day, we'll do things like, organising our social media campaigns, advocacy, encouraging us to try different things because, we're working with a very sort of international organisation. How does our message get down to folks, everyday folks who are interested in trying to understand what we're doing? So that kind of work, and then things like designing projects. Look, we want to tackle this. One of the key things that we've done really, really well is we've got global estimates on forced labour, child labour, right?
Okay.
There are no global estimates on non-discrimination in the world of work. And we've put some studies out there, and we found that actually you can't have a composite indicator on non-discrimination. And now we're trying to put together a project to measure discrimination based on race.
Okay.
We've got the concept note, go and find the donors.
How the hell do you do that? I look at it. With regards to just carrying out a main survey, we get snap surveys all the time on a job.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm doing this on a work computer through a work log on. Somebody's going to know what the hell I've said. So you sort of, you begin to tailor what answers you're giving based on how much shit you're going to get into.
Yeah.
So how do you do that on a national level, on an international level?
It's very difficult because in the UK you can measure race and ethnicity. Yeah. There are governments and member states that do not allow that.
Yeah, which is like Italy, Spain, places like
that.
Yeah, doing
you cannot measure it, and it becomes a very big challenge. So this is now, how do you do that, and then also how do you work with international organisations or regional organisations like the EU, who's now got the anti-racism strategy in place. So. And it's not for me now to come up with the methodology, but how do we bring in experts? So what the thing about the ILO is that we have convening power. We will bring in all of these technical experts who come together, economists, sociologists, anthropologists, come together to figure out how do we measure or put in composite indicator for discrimination based on race.
Yeah.
Because you're not, and how do you measure it? You can measure discrimination based on pay. That's fine. But what about other aspects? You've got in employment, in technical vocational, in positions, in board positions.
Yeah.
So so at what point are you measuring that? At what point are you going to measure that discrimination?
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest challenges.
Because they could go, right, actually, based on diversity, we have got an ethnic makeup of 45%.
Yeah.
You'd look at that and go, absolutely, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But then you go, actually, they're all at bottom level.
Yeah, exactly.
This
is one of the biggest. How many do you have in the boardroom? How do you have at what positions? Are they being paid equal? What kind of questions are you asking them through the interview? What are the opportunities for them as well? It's just sort of interesting. You've just reminded me of what is an infographic I saw on opportunity and the different types of opportunity you have in your employment cycle as well. But let's just say the UK,
progression, career training,
exactly,
promotions,
solidarity,
external work, external influences, mentorships, things like that.
Exactly. Opportunities, and then recognition. Having to work certain ethnicities and races will have to work in addition and overperforming, and that's and then when it comes down to equal pay, in equal pay between men and women, we know that the gender gap, the pay gap stands globally at 16 or 70%. I don't know what it is at the UK. So these are the so I've got to put together a project for that. And then look for the funding to bring all those experts together, to organise that, to put the team behind, to get an economist in place, to get statisticians in place. Right, how do we create this methodology, go through the peer review so that if it gets challenged, because we will have governments challenging.
So who do your peer reviews?
I don't. No.
Okay.
So we have peer review. There are peer review processes, or there are people that will. The methodology has to be sound. It has to go through robust. What's the word? It has to be challenged.
Yeah.
It can't just you can't just make a methodology and then go off.
Well, do they look at factors like, is it smart? Is it measurable? Is it achievable? Is it those sorts of things?
More so than that. I think it's looking at sampling sizes. The size of the sample. Is it questions more around that. That's one of the things. Is it reliable data? The source of the data. Is the data comparable? Is the data where did you get the data from? Etc. Etc. So those kinds of
so the efficacy of your data that you're providing.
Exactly. So that's got to be all done. And if you've got gaps, because not every single country measures something like race as well. And then setting up that sort of the legal because the data collection has to be based on a legal framework, and the legal framework and getting that all to align is one of the biggest challenges. And we can't even get that through our head. We can do it for child labour. We've done it for forced labour, but how do we do it for something else?
For race and discrimination.
For racial-based discrimination, and that's just race. And how can we do it for something else?
Yeah.
You know, and then there are challenges as well in the organisation. You know, that people don't say, well, race does not exist.
Yeah.
But it's in the convention.
It's in the protected characteristics. Yeah.
Yeah. You do get questions around that. So yeah, that's one of the things I do trainings around non-discrimination, lots of talks, working with government officials, reviewing documents, reviewing reports, providing my inputs, and generally fundraising. At the moment, most of my time is trying to build those relationships and partnerships for collaboration that can help us do the work that we want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just my day job.
That sounds one hell of a day job.
Yeah.
I know how hard it is to get one project off the board.
Yeah.
So let alone when you're looking at a project at an international level.
Yeah, and
here's a question.
Yeah.
How has Brexit compounded any of the work that you're doing in the UK?
In the UK, we don't. Most of our work, we do work with the UK government.
Yep.
And I think I think it's not for us. I think it's for the UK government to ensure that it remains in line with its commitments. It's not for me,
no.
to tell the UK government. It's our committee of experts that will say, okay, you have this issue, that issue. Interestingly, now the UK is up for the Universal Periodic Review in the UN Human Rights Council. Yep. That's coming up. That will happen in June, I think. But in terms of the ILO, member states, once you ratify a convention, they have to report on its issues. And the UK government has been a great partner when it comes to forced labour and modern day slavery.
Yeah.
And they're a member of the Equal Pay International Coalition. But I haven't seen so much in terms of any sort of backward trend or forward trend in terms.
Okay.
So it's yet to see. I think
at the moment the water's still the same.
From what I read from the committee of experts from the ILO, it's what they tell us. They will say, okay, this is where we're worried, or this is where there's room for improvement.
Okay. Just sticking to your work 1 second. Where has your work taken you? As in, you must have seen some different work countries and places. And
oh yeah, God, I was counting that the other day.
Because when you mentioned Uganda, there I was like,
I haven't been to Uganda.
Where have you been?
Liberia.
Okay, see George Weah? No?
No. Liberia I loved. I would have moved there in a heartbeat.
Okay.
And it's just, amazing country. Liberia, Ghana. So, I haven't done Liberia, Ghana, Mali.
Yeah.
That's it for Africa. Then I've done Bangladesh, Nepal, Philippines, India, where else have I been for work? Afghanistan, Serbia, Laos, Thailand. Yeah.
Yeah. That's for work.
That's work.
I can barely get to Birmingham from here. So
trust me,
that's amazing.
It is. At first you're like, oh my god, I'm going on official mission or on GT travel. It's great, but afterwards you're like,
tired, I'm knackered.
I'm not, and it's always also kind of stressful, especially if you're going to places like Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And waiting for your car at the airport and thinking, the car hasn't turned up. Where am I going to get to the office and get to the compound?
I'm guessing you've taken things back from experiences in these countries and just seeing how people live and things like that.
You take a lot back. You take a lot of people back with you as well. You take a lot of hope back with you.
Okay.
you take a lot of hope back.
You become more appreciative of what you have.
Yeah.
Seeing what they don't have.
Yes and no. I know it gives you hope and faith for humanity a little bit more. You do get a little bit more of that.
Yeah.
Yes, we are privileged, and I acknowledge that you have that privilege as well. But that's not to say that, oh, I've got this and that, look at them, and it's to look down on other people, because I think that there's an issue with that around how we look at how we see our opportunities versus that, I've got this and they haven't got that, but they may be 10 times happier than I am.
Yeah.
10 times happier than I am.
Yeah. Well,
just because, we're
focused on materialistic goals and things like that, where they're not.
Yeah, and I think that sort of, that kind of comparison doesn't, I think, help us in, it also, the issue with that, it promotes a savioristic attitude. Oh, look at them, we've got to help them now. We have to provide them with their tools to help themselves if they want to, and if they, and how do they want to help themselves, and where do they want to go?
It sounds amazing, man. Well, it sounds like you've been to places that are not your, they're not your general holiday tourist sites.
Yeah.
But it's like I was talking to somebody else we went to college with, and she ended up in Ethiopia, and it's somewhere I've always wanted to go.
It's Jigna.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was at Addis Ababa and places like that. And I want to go more for relic hunting and things like that, and I want to go and see the Church of Mount Zion. I want to go and see the sculpted crosses and things like that. And she's like, I've been there. And you're just like, holy cow. Other people won't want to go there.
Yeah.
But it depends what you take back from it. And
yeah, you take a lot back.
Yeah.
You take a lot of humility back.
Yeah.
A lot of humility back. And a lot of faith again, like I said.
Yeah.
And sometimes frustration. You're like, okay, how do you convince someone that how do you know that what you're doing, that is so detached from a policy environment that isn't going to impact
on these people,
on people that are struggling to put $2 making a living of $1 to $2 a day, and that can be frustrating. That can be frustrating sometimes. But it also puts determination behind you as well. It makes you even more determined.
Well, that's cool. Right, we talked about your work.
Yeah.
What I want to now talk about is the advocacy work that you do outside, because I've seen a lot of your stuff, especially on Facebook. That's the only way I'm following you.
Yeah.
But I've seen you do a lot of talks and a lot of things on there.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to talk about your advocacy work, because that's, for me, is a massive reason why as well as the work that you've done with kids, but you've been doing so much advocacy work. What is that advocacy work, and how did you get into it, and what are you doing presently?
My advocacy work started mostly through UN Globe, which is the staff group for LGBTIQ plus personnel in the UN system. So advocating internally and doing that work kind of then led me to work. So I started doing that in 2014, when I became coordinator in Geneva and coordinator for Geneva and ILO, and joined the board actually in 2014 to do this work inside the UN system. Because everyone thinks, the UN must be, of course the UN must be LGBTIQ friendly. No, it's an employer. Yeah. And indeed, we have to look at the UN and think, okay, we have to hold up the UN system to a higher account, of course. But let's forget what the UN is. The UN is a membership organization, 190 plus countries coming together to discuss global issues and working together, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, those member states come together to discuss our issues as well, staff, personnel issues, and out of those 190 plus countries, you have 69 which criminalise LGBTIQ plus people. Guess what's going to happen? Yeah. They're going to come in and criminalise you as the personnel, and those personnel within the UN system. So it's going to impact personnel. So the staff regulations are not always very friendly and very heteronormative. So what do? We come in and start the advocacy work. And that's where I started to learn more about these issues, about LGBTIQ plus issues.
Yeah.
and then consequently became more passionate about championing equality, right? And then in 2016, I think my now boss, Lisa Wong, I work with her, started helping her on non-discrimination work. Was like, I'm really interested in this. How can I help you? In fact, actually, it was even before then. When did I think it was 2004. 14, 15, I started working with, I had my project work, but I would do additional hours so that I could learn more about non-discrimination work, and would provide, she'd say, Nana, can you read this report and provide, because we need an extra set of eyes on this. Yeah. So I got more involved in that, and in 2019 made the jump across into non-discrimination work because I became so much passionate about the issue of equality. I think I've always been. Back in college here at QE, there was a famous deportation case, and the UK government were due to deport someone. I think it was a Nepalese child who had been adopted by quite wealthy family. Yeah. And I started a petition. Yeah. And like trying to get people to be sure. I don't know if I roped you into standing with me on in front of the clock tower.
We were in town.
So I used to collect.
We got our free McDonalds.
Yeah.
Because Anand was working.
Yeah.
And then I remember being out there.
So I was doing. So that I think it's always been in me to work on these issues, or to work on equality issues. So as a consequence, and in 2019, when the project I was a director for was ending, I said, okay, I can continue going up and up and up, or work on child labour issues, and perhaps even have another project to manage. But I said, no, I'm happy here. We can take a step back, sort of, and work on non-discrimination issues. And what else have I been a part of? As a consequence of my work with UN Globe, my advocacy within UN Globe, I've learnt more about myself. I learned about who I am a little bit more. I've learned it's brought me back to my faith even more. Yeah. It's made me understand those issues that I had in terms of my own identity. Being too British. And I was like, hang on. It wasn't about being too British or being too Indian. There can be both of those at the same time. Yeah. You don't have to be either or. It can be so many different things that, and I think it was always my it allowed me to be more. I don't know. It just got me understand myself better, and then therefore it became a sort of a personal. It becomes personal. Yeah. As a person of colour, as a person of faith, on these different spectrums of holding these different identities, you're able to internalize it more and speak on these issues more. You become more
empathetic towards those issues and views.
And you start to learn more as well, and you start to sort of unpick all of those toxic behaviours you've learned to cover up yourself. So I got more involved in that, then started helping other organisations. After that, did a bit with International Family Equality Day NGO, and most of my work has been through UN Globe. Sharing my work, sharing the work of UN Globe, and learning about how discrimination manifests itself. Yeah. And also trying to change the organisation within the UN as well. Where you've got so many people coming from different cultures where they're being taught to think that being LGBTIQ+ is wrong, or think they've never met an LGBTIQ+ person. Yeah. And how do you change that? And inspired an organisation which is already... So if we're going to deliver on our mandate as UN International Civil Servants, we have to know these issues. We have to be working on these issues. And you've got to let go of all of your biases and prejudices that you come into the workplace with. And there are people that come in openly with those prejudices into our workplaces. Yeah. And that's not just, because they're from this country or that culture. They can even be from the UK, and they still hold those prejudices. Yeah. You hear conversations around, oh God, here the pronoun police. What is it? It's the alphabet mafia coming. You hear that kind of stuff, and there are people from, even from the UK. I'm like, okay, we have to go in and start doing that awareness, and so for me it was, it's been. an opportunity to give back as well and do that seva, I think.
Yeah.
And I think through working with the LGBTIQ plus people and LGBTIQ plus communities, I've been you're able to engage in seva. You are able to learn what Sikhi is all more about as well. It's brought me back to Sikhi a lot more. The ideas of seva, the idea of sangat. When I'm listening to my Japji Sahib in the morning, I understand parts of the Japji Sahib even more, and I'm like, oh wow, okay. There's a thing that my dad always taught me was this idea of that Vaheguru vibrates within you.
Yeah, internal vibration.
Yeah, and for me, that when I was looking at identities and thinking about identities, your identities vibrate.
Yeah.
One time you're more British, one time you're more this, and that's Vaheguru vibrating within you at the same time. So how Vaheguru lives within you, that it just brought me back. I was like, hang on, there's something here that says that our identities and Vaheguru are so linked and intrinsic to one another.
Yeah.
For me, it was able to, especially at a time when I was so fed up with my faith, was like, I'm hearing.
Put it aside, yeah.
Yeah, I put it aside. I was also like hearing these sort of archaic values about this hate of this hate of this misogyny of that, and we're seen from the community, and it's sort of how it personifies in our faith as well. I was like, no, but it helped me. It brought me back to the very principles and the basics of our faith.
Yeah, because Guru Nanak Dev Ji's faith was never in any way discriminatory.
No.
They were the first ones who went, there's level pegging here completely. What a man can do, a woman can do. There is no caste system. That is man-made fallacies and issues. They didn't do anything. There was no discrimination on any level.
Exactly. No, exactly. And
they spoke to anybody of any faith, of any colour, in any language.
Yeah.
They didn't see that.
And that was, I think that's the beauty of it as well. And I think we're only beginning to really go back to the basics of our faith and really,
Even in Ardas, we do an Ardas and we say, Nanak Naam Chardi Kala Tere Bane Sarbat Da Pala. So for everybody.
Yeah.
For the benefit of all.
Yeah.
There's no exclusivity. They didn't say Sikha da Pala.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
They didn't say Punjabi da Pala. But I mean, it's that sort of thing.
Exactly.
It's been a core value of the benefit of all.
Indeed, and that's why I think it's there's no sort of parenthesis said about that. But hold on, not for the exactly like you said, and that's why then I think during lockdown I reached out to Sarbat LGBTI Sikhs, started doing work with them and doing advocacy for them as well and engaging with them. And
that's when I saw you on there. So when you were doing talks on Sarbat.
Yeah, I did
LGBT.
two with Sarbat. I worked with three. This was around 2020 when the Black Lives Matter movement was, and how do we as a Gaum stand up for other Gaums as well, who are part of our Gaums, reaching out to Black Sikhs in the US.
Yeah, they've got Black Sikh Collective is a big thing.
Black Sikh Collective, amazing work. And, how do we as Sikhs, because it's not just about, this is the message of our Panth that we support. It wasn't just about religious oppression. It's all types of forms of oppression, and I think this is what our Panth needs to do more as well, and people in our Panth need to do more. Yes, we do great seva, we see the great work that is going on, especially in the UK, but how do we also stand up for other communities beyond just giving food and water and stuff? That's very important. But then how do we advocate at other levels? How do we leverage our power and voice in other areas? And when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to FGM,
you just saw the farmer stuff as well, didn't you?
Huh?
The farmer stuff as well.
Farmer stuff as well.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
Indeed, the farmer stuff, and so with Black Lives Matter, I remember doing my first talk around that. What we can do as Sikhs, and not just supporting Black Sikhs, but supporting all people of colour here, in particular Black people. Then what else? Then we did two talks. One with Lady Phil from UK Black Pride, the intersections of faith, race, sexuality, and then had another great webinar with Noor.
She's a musician.
Yeah, no, a guitar dancer, an
Yes.
artist, and I don't know how they would identify themselves, so I'm going to use they them.
Yeah.
And who are an amazing force and breaking taboos around gender and who can perform gidda and how, what clothes you can wear, and challenging, tipping traditions on their head, and through a beautiful art form. I was a dancer. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I remember showing my dad this video and go, look, this can be done, and look at this. And hoping to do more as well with Sobat around how we're trying to help get Sobat to become a more established charity in the UK and globally around conversion therapy as well. And the intersections of sexuality, faith, and mental health as well. This is something that's really, really important. I think a lot of Sikhs and Sikh youth want to understand where do we stand on this, because nothing's been written on this. Our gurus never said anything on this, because and one interpretation of that is, well, it wasn't really important for them. It's not a big deal. So why do we need to discuss this? Everyone's equal, and so we shouldn't discriminate. But that discrimination still happens.
That's why we're here. This is a taboo topic. I expect that we're going to get lots of people going, hang on, this is terrible. And then you're going to get the other side going, this is amazing. You're opening some doors. But it depends on the audience that looks at this. But it is, for me, I know enough people who have been in the Punjabi community who have been well aware of the stigma within the community if they came out and were them true selves. And I think that barrier needs to be broken down, because what issue is it? For me, what is it? What is the issue if somebody goes, well, I'm this is how I feel, this is how I am. It doesn't affect me. As long as they're happy. We all champion mental health at the moment. And that's my big thing. We all champion mental health. But a lot of it's just saying something. It's just, for some people, it's saying something. So if somebody came out and said, my mental health is like this because I do not know how I fit in. And if you go, this is how I really feel, and somebody go, oh, that's not right. So it's mental health to a degree that it fits in your little pyramid, in your little square box. And the moment it falls outside of your square box, you've got a problem, or you need conversion therapy, or you need to do this. And I think it's important that we talk about these things.
I think that this whole shame, this whole idea of shame and sharm stifles our conversations.
It's not just that. I got divorced. That was a big stigma. It's like, what are people going to think? And you're just like, I don't care what the outside world thinks.
I don't care.
And it's that sort of thing. It's the shame and sharm is the big thing that runs in our community. It's like, how will people perceive this? How will people look at our family? How can we go to these events? Go to the fucking events. I don't care. Or don't go to them.
I think this is the biggest. This is what's going to set our community back is sharm and the question of sharm as well. Don't care as long as, and that, breaking away from that, and it weighs you down. It weighs us down a lot. This whole idea of lucky go. I don't care about lucky.
They're not sat here with me.
Exactly. And also, it's not lucky doing the part for me. It's me doing part for myself and connecting with my guru. It's not me and Lucky connecting with the guru. It's me connecting with the guru, right? So and also, this whole sort of question of is it really Sikhi then? Is it really Sikhi? Because actually what you're doing is bringing...
But not if you're being discriminatory or towards someone. Because it's like I said, the first thing that comes out is for the Sarbat. And you're looking for the benefactor of all things like that.
And that's the main thing, is everyone benefits. And that's why I think I do a lot of my advocacy work, is like, how do we... And even within the LGBTIQ plus communities, you have this whole issue of, well, marriage. I'm like, well, hang on, no. Not just marriage, it's important. The right to marriage, the right to have family, the right to have all of this. Forget, right, but how are we going to help others? How are we going to link this to environmental issues? How are we going to link this to indigenous issues? What about tax justice? Okay, there's an issue, right? Let's talk about tax justice. How are we going to listen to it to climate justice? It's LGBTIQ plus communities or people of colour, we don't live in silos.
Yeah.
We live we live in multiple communities. We hold multiple spaces where we can, and therefore it becomes very, very important that those movements, we show solidarity with one another, because it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's it's all interconnected.
Yes, it's all intrinsically linked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important that we have that solidarity for one another.
Oh, that's fine. With regards to the Punjabi community, there's quite a few actually on YouTube now. There's quite a few individuals who have gone, this is who I am, this is how I present myself, this is what stigma works, and it's quite good. It's opening up doors and barriers that have been there for such a long time that need to come down. But if we've got somebody here listening and they're a member of the Punjabi community and they are like LGBTQI plus, but they're having difficulty being true to who they are or want to come out, what advice or assistance or groups would you put them in touch with, or could you offer some advice here now?
I'm not trained first health mental.
No, it's not. No, but it's not that. It's like if somebody wants to know, going, actually, I'd like a safe group where I can talk.
Yeah. Reach out to Sarbat.
Okay.
Sarbat LGBT Sikhs. Let me just. I forget that we just changed the website as well. Find it. It's sarbat.net.
Yep.
Reach out there. For awareness, support and resources. You could also, so there's that. There's also Taraqi as well. They do a lot of work.
Who's that?
Taraqi, mental health group. There's other spaces. If you don't want to reach out in a faith-based space, there's We Create Space that I'm also part of. You can reach out through there.
Yeah.
That's a good resource as well around mental health and intersections of being LGBTIQ+. What else? There's a few others, that are out there.
Yeah.
That I can name. There's Sanj the LGBT Sikh. I think they're on Instagram. Alternatively, they can contact me directly, and I'm happy to put in touch. I'm on LinkedIn.
Right. Okay.
LinkedIn, Gurchetan Sandhu.
Yeah.
And then on Instagram and Instagram and Twitter, Turbanized with the Z.
Yeah.
Turbanator was taken.
I did see that the other day. I was like, I realised with your photo on there. I was like, okay. So Turbanized. Facebook as well.
Facebook as well, yeah. And happy to sort of direct people to the relevant resources.
And that's all I want.
Yeah. And I mean, my first advice is, I think there's one of the key things I often hear is especially if you're UK based, is are you out to your families? Are you out to this? Are you out to that? Okay, this whole thing about being out sometimes, especially in our
it's about being true.
It's about being true to yourself. Out to who and what? Are you out to yourself first of all? Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Very, very important. Self-acceptance, because we tell ourselves so many lies, and we actually don't even tell ourselves lies. We don't even address the lies or address the truth in ourselves. So that's I think really, really important. But coming out as what, especially when the words don't exist in your language.
Yeah.
Do we have it in Punjabi? I think there is a word that it doesn't really capture everything.
No.
It doesn't really capture everything, especially if you're trans or intersex. There's a lot of confusion between trans and intersex. So, I often have questions or discussions with parents around what is the hijra community, what is Ginnad, how do you define as intersex, and often hijra gets confused with intersex. It's like, okay, it's not the same. So the words are not there.
Does hijra get confused with the word the term kusa that we use?
Yeah, well, that is offensive as well.
Yeah, exactly. Kustis,
yeah.
But
So,
that's what I mean. So.
Yeah, so that you often hear in terms of it's a pejorative word that gets thrown against gay people as well, and you're like, hang on, that's not the same.
Yeah. No, within when we get taught within the Sikh communities, they say there's three genders. God is neither of those.
Yeah.
Neither male, not female, not transgender.
Yeah.
It is in not a third gender. There is no third gender. So that's what they're saying. So, but the term kusra is, like I said, it is a negative.
It's a pejorative.
It's got a massive negative adjective compared to it.
Yeah. So going back to that, the right words don't exist.
Yeah.
The other part then is that are you in an environment where it's safe to be out?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so one of the key things that, especially for UN Globe or Globe members, where we have LGBTIQ plus staff working and living in parts of the world where it's criminalised, where you can be murdered for even being LGBTIQ plus. Yeah. You cannot come out. So, do you have economic security, financial security, emotional security, physical security? If any of those are not there, you need to evaluate. You are responsible for your own safety and well-being. So if you cannot guarantee all three, or you need support within one of them to actually be out and then say, this is who I am, you need to question that. So it's really, really important. We can't, there's this whole thing, let's everyone be out.
And you're like, what's the point if you're going to get killed?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. We need you.
Yeah.
And those are the voices that we need, especially in the LGBTIQ plus communities. Those are the voices that are needed the most and most valuable as well, because they're living in the shadows. Yeah. They don't get heard from enough. Yeah. And so how do you provide, so one of the key parts of my work is how do you provide safe spaces and create safe spaces for people to feel safe to come forward. So if you do reach out to me, know that it's going to be done in trust. I don't know where trust, confidentiality, privacy. So if someone tells you something like that, it's not your business then to go and pass it on to tell someone else. Yeah. There's a lot of that in our communities. Sonia, one of them. Sonia, one of the kudi. Is it now? Sonia, one of them munda kudiya munda patan. And you're like, okay, don't. That information, if someone tells you in your own communities, do not pass it on. It's not for you to be shared with. So in that sense, when you come to me and you share something, reach out on that. So happy to take to guide them through. I may not have the answers. answers.
Yeah, but it's not that. Sometimes you need somebody to just talk to.
Exactly, and I'm happy to do that. And a lot of the time, people do just reach out. I just need someone. I'm working with a group of people, or I need help or advice on this. Yeah. And it's most of the time it's like, oh, you know what? I just needed someone to talk to. Yeah. And that's the most important part, So, if you want to...
contact you on all those social media networks.
Happy to be available in those spaces.
Okay, good. Well, couple of quick questions.
Yeah.
First one is, you've mentioned sort of about the LGBT Sikhs and sort of about .NET and places like that. Yeah. What are the networks you're currently working with?
Working with, or
you work for, or you have an advocacy for some of these.
So I've got my day job, UN Globe as well, and then I do LGBT Sikhs. Yeah. Do We Create Space, and then do International Family Equality Day NGO. Also a fellow for Salzburg Global LGBTI Fellowship. And then, I've connected with, UK Black Pride.
Okay.
Don't do anything with them directly, but there's a part of the network of UK Black Pride. Yeah. So those are the big ones I'm part of and get involved with, or working closely with Jane O'Zane Foundation.
Who's that? Sorry.
Jane O'Zane Foundation.
Jane O'Zane.
Yeah. Looking at faith.
Okay.
What else? That's the big stuff. Or in addition to the day job, then do a lot of speaking engagements as well.
Yeah, I saw one the other day.
Yeah, doing one tomorrow, but I suppose it's going to be aired already by then. On symbolic violence. Okay. Called Viram, a really interesting organisation group that's coming up in India.
Got loads on now.
Yeah.
Next question is, what are your future plans? What are your future plans, or what are your future goals? What is it that you...
Continue to do Seva for me, I think. I think keep on growing and learning. That's my individual plan, and championing LGBTIQ plus rights or just non-discrimination.
Well, you won an award recently.
Yeah.
What was that for? Before I forget, because that's quite a big thing.
Yeah, that was the British LGBTI Awards for exceptional inclusion, I think. Yeah.
How do you get nominated for something like that?
A colleague at work, a very good friend of mine, Adam Bowers, nominated me for my work that I was doing internally and externally inside the UN and outside of the UN as well.
Did you know about it?
Not when the nomination happened, but when I received, you've been nominated, can you provide us with extra evidence?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, fine. And when I got nominated, I saw the shortlist. I went, there is no way I'm going to win this.
Yeah.
There are some amazing people doing amazing work. But yeah, won that.
Yeah, it's awesome. I saw it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and then I wasn't able to go to the award ceremony, sadly, because it was during COVID and there was a lot of complications with travelling. And then the British ambassador in Geneva offered to
present that to you. Okay.
Present me that at the British mission in Geneva. So yeah, in front of what is called the Equal Rights Coalition.
So yeah. Sorry, I had to, but I totally forgot about that. Sorry, looking at still continues to do so, championing LGBTIQ
rights. Yeah.
Work.
I think growing in myself as well. I think I think there's still a lot of understanding around our faith and want to do around these topics as well, around trans rights in particular.
Would you not look to get on your own platform?
I have thought about it.
Because you've done talks.
Yeah.
You're doing a talk now.
Yeah. I have thought about it, and there's something in the back of my mind I'm thinking of, but I don't want to say yet.
That's fine.
Maybe that perhaps looks at not just at it, because a lot of the LGBTIQ plus rights is always around marriage and that, and I'm like, hang on, there's more to this.
Yeah.
It's about economic rights, it's about social, cultural, political rights. I think perhaps something around that.
Yeah.
But right now I don't have the bandwidth. To do that. I think I would like to perhaps do some more webinars with Sarbat and more chats around that. What I would love to see one day, this is not my future plans, but I would like to see this conversation being taken up. It's been already covered in certain areas, but taken up a little bit more seriously as well, and more.
What do you mean within our faith?
Within our faith,
okay.
Yeah.
Within our faith and faith groups, yeah.
And taken up, and not even discussing marriage at the moment. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, equal." Okay, we're not going to discuss that yet. And we that discussion has to happen at some point, and that may have to happen at one point. We'll get across that bridge, but we're not even there yet. Let's stop the violence. Let's stop the hurt and the hate first. Before we even get there. That's a key thing, I think. So and I think those are the key areas for me. I think social solidarity is one of the key areas that I'll keep on continuing to work on. Championing rights for all people, all workers. I think a lot of my activism started here in the UK as well, in Leicester with the Indian Workers Association. I think there's that part. Is it still going, the Indian Workers Association? Yeah,
probably not. You're not here now. It's probably gone. You don't know. I've got no idea if it's still going.
I learned a lot through them as well. And when I think one of the key things is that not forgetting that our parents were working class as well. How does a working class person actually end up in a position like I have? I don't know how I did it.
Just glad it happened.
I'm glad it happened. I'm very grateful it happened.
No, that's great. Like I said, really interesting to know what your future plans are when you come to that conclusion. That'll be great. With regards to this, have you got any questions for us in reference to anything you've said today or anything you want to bring up that we've missed out? Because this is your opportunity. This is for you.
What do you, as a podcast, as someone as well, you've done a lot of work around faith and faith-based communities, and what do you see the biggest challenges for our faith in terms of inclusion, and where is it going to happen? Because there's growth, but how do we cement it in?
I think the issue you have is we're talking generational. For me, the personal issue we have generational bigotry that is brought back to this country, back from Punjab. And I think what the biggest change is happening now with the generation, third generation especially, third generation born here, no longer have those things, those backups from Punjab where it's like, this defines who I am and this defines who I am. The conservatism within our generations is becoming less and less, and the liberalisation of views, the empathy of others, the understanding of other people's views and minorities. It's no longer, you look at Black Lives Matter, it isn't just black people going, I want rights for blacks. It's people from every community, every generation going, this is wrong. Yeah. I see this and this is wrong. Or there's other people for other faith groups and other organisations and those people from the LGBTQ going, hang on, this has taken place. We've had an atrocity here in a club, 50 people are dead, and everybody's coming out from every group. So here, the Sikh chaplains, people like that, they're all out there. Yeah. The more liberal the viewpoint, the better, because barriers are broken down. I think there has to be a talk within everybody where you're like, the biggest thing for me as a Sikh is what I do shouldn't affect what you do, or what you do shouldn't affect what I do. So why should I have a viewpoint or any sort of discrimination on what you do? And my thing is always, if you point one finger, there's always three pointing back. So don't ever judge somebody else. Yeah.
No, I had. You know what? Growing up, there was that. There was someone that actually said to me, he goes, you know what? Because of you, I'm scared that this is going to come back on me on this. And I'm like,
yeah.
And that was somewhat, and I was like, oh my God, wow, what a narrow world we live in.
But I had that narrow mind. We all had that narrow mind. And as you grow, you exponentially grow as a person. Yeah. And your barriers break to the point where they just do.
And one of the key things is, in our faith, where do you think gender equality is going to, or equality is going to champion?
To be honest, I have no idea. Yeah. Because it's one of those Pandora's boxes thing. Until you open that box, you don't know what's going to come out. Yeah. I think with everything, there is going to be a massive pushback because something is different to what it's always been. Yeah. It always will be. Yeah. We have that now with people going, actually, we want to do this. And you'll always have the perspective of, this is how it's always been done. Yeah. And then you'll have the individuals who are really liberal to it going, well, why can't we do this? What is the pushback? Yeah. And it's having that conversation between ourselves. But I don't, it's not an issue. For me, it's not an issue. I've got enough friends who are within the Punjabi community who are now true to who they are. They don't need to express it openly, but they know who they are. Yeah. Why should that prevent them from coming to an account party, doing their party, doing whatever they want, doing the civil? There's no issues, is it? It doesn't change anything. No.
I think there's a lot of taboos.
Right, okay. Let's flip it on its head. Let's not talk about sexuality with regards to how you define yourself in gender or how you define your sexuality. If you have somebody who is, and we're talking at a personal level, if somebody's going, I'm in a heterosexual relationship and I'm just into everything that I consider normal. Yeah. And the next person goes, I'm in a heterosexual relationship, but I'm into massive BDSM. Yeah. What difference does it make? What difference does it make? And it's that same conversation. So that person's in a heterosexual relationship, but they're into serious BDSM. Yeah. But what difference does it make? They're still coming to the God, they're still doing their things. Yeah. What difference does it make? Yeah. And that for me that's my personal viewpoint. Yeah. But where we look at it at a national point and an international point is when we start getting minds together who don't think like that. And you've got to start breaking down their viewpoints. Yeah. And I don't think it's the same way we've said before. I remember being in the late 80s, early 90s when you're like, there's a Gordo with a bug on. What's going on there? Yeah. So they've had those sorts of things, and it's going to be, again, learning to gain a level of acceptance because it's something that you're breaking from. It's normal. Yeah. So that's my view. With regards to what's going to happen,
I don't know. Yeah. I think even if we get to I think BDSM is that's even a far fetch from that. Even ableism, disability within our community is so taboo.
You say that, and then you get somebody like Gurchetan Singh who opens Pingalwara, which is made for disabled kids that are in refuges, kids that are in homes, and look what he's done. On his own.
Yeah.
He was a child of a mother. His father didn't want to know anything to do with them. They were left. You look at what he did with his life.
Who is this?
Gurchetan Singh from Pingalwara. Then he came to Amritsar after partition. He helped somebody. Basically, he was helping people in the camps when partition happened. He had no money, and he found somebody who had just passed away. He had lots of money on him, and then he started his organisation, and he helped people all of his life. Pingalwara is one of the best things to go and see in Amritsar. It will break you because you look at kids and go, "My God, I can't believe this is here." So he broke down barriers, and today barriers are being broken still with his work. And Dr. Inderjeet Kaur, who is there now and heads it, definitely worth having a look at. I'll send you some links after this. But,
definitely.
But those sorts of things are there. The problem is we have, and this is within the whole society, we have an element of what we consider to be normal. But we have that element ingrained with us by other people who consider this is normal. It's the acceptance of what is humanity. That's how I see it. And that's what I think. Being in the job I am over 20 years, I've seen those barriers broken in my own thought process. And that's what it is. It's about, and it's the same with Gurbani. Gurbani states that while there is avidya, while there is ignorance, there is no acceptance of reality. There's no acceptance of the truth. Although that is talking in a spiritual context, same in the materialistic world. While you have an ignorance about people, that's where fascism, racism, all these isms come in, because there's an ignorance. The ignorance of, we saw it in the 80s with the AIDS pandemic. I could catch this from just kissing someone. I could catch this from using their utensils. I could catch this. Break down those barriers. Things change. And it's that sort of thing. And I just think education is a big thing. And it's like they say, Gurbani on a spiritual level says Gyan and Jan Gurdiya Agyan and Dirvana. So it says through knowledge you can take away the ignorance, and that's what eradicates ignorance. Knowledge does, and that's what's going to help you become one.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that is on a spiritual level, on a personal level, and a worldly level. In the same way, education is massive. And you know yourself, you've gone from studying in Manchester, being educated on something in activism, to going, I'm now at the UN and I'm learning something more. And it breaks down your own personal barriers.
Yeah. No, definitely. I've learnt a lot. Continue to learn as well.
Well, I hope this is going to give you some more introspection on your own self. Just talking today.
I think you've challenged me a lot today, I think. And then,
what, by just chatting shit?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
No, I think, in terms of, let's go back to college, right? Will we have these conversations then?
No, and this is what I said to you. It was very different.
It was
It's about
different.
personal growth. It's about knowing yourself. Because at college, at college, talking about anything was... True. You had to fit into the square peg.
Yeah, you did.
And none of us did anyway.
Yeah.
And that's why we were the bunch of people who hung around together, because you didn't fit in your community, you didn't fit in yours, we all got together, we had a laugh, sort of thing.
We made our own.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there was the other aspect of it. What is different now is that that's all changed even more now. It's happening where people can even be more themselves now, which I look back and I'm like, wow, I wish that was there when I was there. I mean, I wouldn't change anything now, but you go back and go, wow, I wish that was there when I was there. But perhaps it, things could have. Maybe I wouldn't be doing.
I totally agree.
I
think, you go into a workplace and all of a sudden you're surrounded by people who are outwardly going, I consider myself to be this. This is my tag. You're like, okay, it's a bit strange. I don't know much about this. I think the big barrier for me was when I joined the police.
Yeah.
We spent a day at the LGBTQ centre in town.
Okay.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I was just like, whoa, I didn't know this, didn't know this. And the level of education breaks down those barriers.
Yeah, it does.
And that's the big thing.
Yeah. But that's the difficult thing as well. It's not just education, it's about dialogue as well. One of the key parts is that how do we, and then we'll be interested to see who you're also going to be talking to, is how do we counter hate? Because what's happening now is, do we shut the conversation down?
Yeah.
Or do we keep the conversation going? How do I bring in a racist and I want to have a conversation with you about your views and opinions?
Yeah.
But also...
Well, we have to do that. We do that through educational programs, and we do that through Prevent.
Yeah.
So Prevent is a big thing with regards to counter-terrorism and so Prevent is a way of stopping people from going into criminality who have already got biased views due to ignorance.
Yeah.
And we look at an outlet. Sometimes it's a case of, actually, the reason why you sit in front of the internet looking at Daesh stuff or National Front stuff for Combat 18 or any sort of far-right views is because they haven't got an outlet. He's sat at home because he's looking after his disabled mother.
Yeah.
And all he's got to do is look after his mum and sit on the internet. I'll tell you what, let me give you 6 hours a week. We bring somebody in to look after your mum. You go to you go to a youth group, or you go to an educational facility where you get away from that. And it's that sort of thing. It's about looking at ways to engage and get these views better. So where you're looking at workshops, where you're talking at talk groups, where you're looking at engagement practices, where you're looking at efficacy within the workplace. You've got to look at it like you're looking at your project management at different views. You might not be able to talk to people, but you look at changing legislation. You might not be able to change legislation. You do a workshop. You might not be able to do that. You get people to go talk to the victims of hate crime who have or you talk to those people who have promoted hate crime in prisons, and you get them to come out like they're doing with the knife crime stuff, like they're doing with the gangs, the organisations in London, like they're doing with firearms criminals, like people like Majid Nawaz, who was involved after 9/11. He was in Egypt and doing things like that, and all of a sudden he's an LBC radio presenter who's had to go through change himself. He's going, this is my personal experience, this is how I went through. So it's about a lot of levels. It's a lot of levels, but you can't do it at one. Try to do it at one, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I hope I haven't bored the shit out of you there.
No, you haven't. No, I'm just blown away with,
I'm not the same dickhead we were at college.
Yeah. No, we were... in terms of, people look at us and go, oh, wow, you're at the UN. I'm like, no, wow, don't do that. Like, wow, what you're doing. I think the world has tipped itself. We've gone back. The world has tipped itself upside down in terms of we haven't moved away from worshipping kings and queens to worshipping billionaires and millionaires. And instead of worshipping them, we should be worshipping our teachers, our doctors, our police force.
This is what this is about.
Respecting our police force, working with the medical community.
I hate the police. I only do it because they get paid.
Yeah, I'm sure the LGBTQI community also have that sort of
It's not a problem. It's not a problem. It's that sort of thing. But this is the reason for today. This is to spark conversation. Whether it's negative or positive, I don't care. But spark that conversation. Yeah. Have that conversation. Somebody wants to listen to this and go, I'm not following this shit anymore. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. Because there's always going to be individuals out there. There's going to be other people who are going, oh, okay, this might open some doors to me. There's other people who go, I now might understand people around me that I've tried to cut out of my life. And it's about having that discussion. And that's what this is important for.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of that. And I think, you go into the Sikh forums as well and you see the hate around these topics, around other topics as well. You're like, God, can we actually,
Have you seen my Sikhism and Snippets account on Instagram? Yeah. I try to promote all types of Sikh groups. Yeah. And you get hatred of, they're not to do with this, they're not to do with this, they're not to do with this. Yeah. The only way you combat it is by talking about it. Yeah. And then there are occasions where you're like, I can't talk anymore because I've provided the evidence and views. Yeah. And you're still going to badger on. Yeah. And you give up at that point because you're like, those individuals are never going to listen. It's there. Yeah. Go and research, do that extra bit. That's what you got to do. But, for me, I'm not bothered about it.
No, keep on doing your work. Keep on providing spaces for people like us as well.
Well, no, we'll do.
Thank you.
With regards to this podcast, like I said, flawed, foolish and fantastic, that's what we are. Me and Kamalpreet Singh, we are the flawed and foolish. Yeah. And you are fantastic. The stuff that you've told us about today, I really appreciate it. You've shed some light to people who won't know. I think you're in an absolutely amazing place with the work that you're doing. And I think there's going to be people out there who do listen to this and go, don't get me wrong, you're going to get some fucking abuse as well. There's going to be people on there going, he's giving me his fucking LinkedIn, right? I'll tell.
Yeah.
But we get that.
Yeah.
We get that. You're always going to get abuse.
Yeah.
But I'm quite happy with 10 people shouting at me while one person approaches me going, I need some help.
Yeah.
As long as I can help that one person,
Yeah.
okay. And I hope that this opens up. But I just want to say thank you very much with regards to today. And yeah, you have been fantastic, and you've shed some light. You've actually given me some ideas of what I need to bug you about as well.
Okay.
But with regards to that, I just want to say thank you very much. And just to finish off, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ka Fateh.
Thank you.
No, thanks, Gurch.